A fake HOA president demanded $8,400 from my house in 3 minutes or she'd take my home. She brought fake lawyers and threats. What she didn't know. I was a retired real estate attorney who had been investigating her scam for months. Big mistake, Karen. Before watching full story, comment below from where are you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The mailman knocked on my door that Tuesday morning. I was still in my pajamas, drinking my first cup of coffee and reading the newspaper. I like my quiet mornings. That's why I moved to this peaceful neighborhood 15 years ago. Certified letter for Michael Rodriguez, the mailman said. He looked serious. I signed the paper and took the thick envelope. The return address said Meadowbrook Heights Homeowners Association. I had never heard of any HOA in my neighborhood. We only had 6 houses on our street. It was quiet and simple. Just the way I liked it. I opened the envelope at my kitchen table. Inside were 3 pages of official-looking papers. But when I read them, my coffee got cold from shock. Violation Enotize property, 1247 Maple Street owner, Michael Rodriguez, total amount due, $8,400. The list of violations was long. Lawn height exceeds community standards, $500. Fence painted unauthorized color, $800. Failure to register with HOA board, $1,200. Late fees for non-compliance, $2,000. Administrative fees, $2,000. Monitoring fees for past 2 years, $2,400. Legal processing fees, $500. I read it twice. Then I started laughing. This had to be a joke. I had owned my house for 15 years. When I bought it in 2008, there was no HOA. The neighborhood was just a quiet street with 6 old houses. No rules. No fees. No problems. I was a retired real estate lawyer. I had spent 30 years helping people buy and sell houses. I knew the law better than most judges. What these papers claimed was impossible. But the papers looked real. They had official seals and legal language. Someone had put a lot of work into making them look legitimate. I was still reading when my doorbell rang. I looked through my front window and saw 3 people on my porch. A blonde woman in her 50s wearing an expensive-looking suit. Behind her were 2 men in cheap suits carrying briefcases. They all looked very serious. I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "Can I help you?" The woman stepped forward with a bright, fake smile. "Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez. I'm Karen Whitfield, president of the Meadowbrook Heights Homeowners Association. These are my attorneys, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Peterson." She pointed to the 2 men. They nodded and tried to look important. "We're here to discuss your violation notice," Karen continued. "I assume you received our certified letter?" "I got it," I said. "But there's been a mistake. I'm not part of any HOA." Karen's smile got bigger and more fake. "Oh, but you are, Mr. Rodriguez. Every property in this development falls under our jurisdiction now. You owe us money and we're here to collect it." "This isn't a development," I said. "It's just a regular street with 6 houses." "Not anymore." Karen pulled out a thick folder. "As of last month, we officially incorporated the entire area into our HOA. You're required to pay all back fees and penalties immediately." One of the fake lawyers stepped forward. He was tall and thin with nervous eyes. "Sir, I'm Mr. Johnson, legal counsel for the HOA. We have full legal authority here. The documents are very clear about your obligations." "Can I see these documents?" I asked. Karen pulled the folder closer to her chest. "You'll see them in court if you don't comply with our demands. We're giving you exactly 3 minutes to agree to our payment plan." 3 minutes? That's crazy. "That's our policy," Karen said firmly. "Sign this payment agreement right now, or we file a lawsuit tomorrow morning. We'll put a lien on your property. We'll start foreclosure proceedings. You'll lose everything." The second fake lawyer, Peterson, started taking pictures of my house with his phone. "I'm documenting current violations," he said loudly. "The grass is at least 3 inches high. That's another $500 fine right there." My heart started beating fast. These people sounded official. They had lawyers with them. They had legal papers and cameras. Maybe I was wrong about the HOA thing. Maybe something had changed that I didn't know about. "I don't understand how this works," I said. "How can you force me to join something I never agreed to?" "Property law," Karen said with a smug look. "When we incorporate an area into an HOA, all residents are automatically included. It's completely legal. We've done our research. But I've lived here since 2008. My house was built in 2005. There was no HOA then." "Doesn't matter," Karen said. You're part of our community now. Pay up or face serious legal consequences. Johnson nodded and opened his briefcase. We've handled dozens of cases exactly like this one, Mr. Rodriguez. Homeowners always think they can resist. They think they can fight the system. They can't. The law is always on our side. What exactly do you claim I owe money for? I asked. Karen opened her folder with great ceremony. Let me break it down for you. Lawn maintenance violations going back 2 years. That's $2,400. Your fence is painted the wrong color. That's $800. Failure to register with the HOA board when we incorporated. That's $1. $200. Administrative processing fees. $2,000. Late payment penalties. $2,000. Grand total of $8,400. Wait, I said. You said you incorporated last month. But you're charging me for violations from 2 years ago? We incorporated officially last month, Karen explained with fake patience. But we've been monitoring this neighborhood for compliance issues for 2 years. We kept detailed records. That doesn't make any sense. Peterson looked up from taking photos. It doesn't have to make sense to you, sir. It just has to be legal. And it is completely legal. I want to see your incorporation documents. I want to see proof that you have authority over my property. You'll see everything in court, Karen said coldly. After we've seized your house for non-payment. This is absolutely your last chance. Sign the payment agreement or lose everything you own. I need time to think about this. This is a big decision. No time, Karen said. 3 minutes. That's what we decided and that's what you get. You can't give someone a 3-minute deadline for something this serious and expensive. We can and we are, Johnson said. Either you comply willingly right now, or we force compliance through immediate legal action. I looked at these 3 people standing on my porch. Karen with her cold, predatory smile. The 2 fake lawyers with their cameras and legal threats. Something felt very wrong about this whole situation. But I had an advantage they didn't know about. I had spent 30 years as a real estate attorney before retiring to this quiet neighborhood. I specialized in property law, HOA disputes, and real estate fraud. I knew more about homeowner association law than most judges in the state. What these people were describing wasn't just wrong, it was completely impossible and probably criminal. Can I ask you something, Karen? I said calmly. What? She snapped. How many other neighbors have you visited with this same story? Her eyes flickered with something that might have been panic. That's confidential HOA business. Is it? Because I've been watching your little operation for months now. I saw you go to Mrs. Henderson's house 3 times last month. She's 83 years old and lives alone. Mr. Garcia got a letter just like mine 2 weeks ago. The Johnson family at the end of the street moved out suddenly after you visited them. We're just enforcing reasonable community standards, Karen said, but her voice was less confident now. Are you really? Because Mrs. Henderson called me crying last month. She said you demanded $5,000 from her. She's on Social Security and can barely afford her medications. She was non-compliant with community standards. What community standards? She's lived in that house for 20 years. There was no HOA when she bought it either. Peterson stopped taking photos and looked nervous. Sir, you need to focus on your own situation here. I am focusing on my situation, I said. And my situation is that I think you people are running a criminal scam. Karen's fake smile finally disappeared completely. How dare you accuse us of? Time's up, I said, pulling out my cell phone. What are you doing? Karen demanded. Calling someone who can help straighten this mess out. I dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang twice before someone answered. Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection Division, this is Sarah speaking. Hello Sarah, this is Michael Rodriguez, I said loudly enough for my visitors to hear. Retired attorney, State Bar number 47291. I need to report an update on that ongoing fraud investigation. Karen went completely white. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. What did you just say? Johnson whispered. That's right, friends. I'm a lawyer. Well, I was a lawyer for 30 years. Real estate law specifically. I was a senior partner at Rodriguez, Martinez and Associates for 15 years before I retired. Johnson took several steps backward. You're actually an attorney? Retired attorney, I corrected. I moved to this quiet neighborhood to get away from legal stress and enjoy my retirement. But apparently you people decided to bring the stress right to my front door. The voice on the phone said, Mr. Rodriguez? We have your file right here. What's the current status on the Meadowbrook Heights investigation? The subjects just showed up at my house with fake legal documents, I said. They're demanding $8,400 in fraudulent fees using the exact same pattern we discussed. I'm looking at all three of them right now. Perfect. We have units en route to your location. Should be there in about 2 minutes. I hung up and smiled at Karen. So, you want to know what real legal authority looks like? You're about to get a first-hand education. This is impossible, Karen whispered, staring at me like I had grown a second head. You're just a regular homeowner. You can't be a lawyer. Why can't I be a lawyer? I asked. Because lawyers don't live in regular neighborhoods? Because we all live in mansions? Lawyers don't live in places like this, she said weakly. Some of us do. Especially when we want peace and quiet in our retirement, which you've been destroying for months with your little scam operation. Peterson's phone slipped from his shaking hands and clattered on my porch. Oh God, we're in so much trouble. Yes, you definitely are, I agreed. Mail fraud is a federal crime. So is extortion. Running a fake HOA to steal money from elderly people? That's organized criminal activity with serious prison time. But we have real incorporation papers. Johnson stammered, opening his briefcase with trembling hands. No, you don't, I said calmly. You have fake papers filed under false pretenses with forged signatures. I have copies of everything. Mrs. Henderson never signed anything agreeing to join an HOA. Neither did the Garcias. You forged their names on your fake incorporation documents. Karen tried to run. She spun around and took 3 quick steps before her high heels betrayed her. She stumbled and fell off my porch, landing hard on the walkway. Her folder exploded open, scattering papers across my front lawn. Those aren't even real legal documents, I said, walking over to look at the scattered papers. You printed these on your home computer? Wrong fonts, wrong formatting, no official case numbers, no court seals. Amateur work. Johnson and Peterson were slowly backing toward the street, their faces pale with terror. We were just hired to help. Johnson said desperately. We didn't know it was fraud. Karen told us it was all legal. Really? I said. That's interesting because neither of you are actually licensed attorneys. I checked the state bar registry last week. There's no Johnson or Peterson license to practice law anywhere in this state. We never said we were real lawyers. Peterson protested. You introduced yourselves as Karen's attorneys 30 seconds ago. That's practicing law without a license. In this state, that's a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Police sirens were getting louder in the distance. Karen was still on the ground, staring at her scattered fake documents. How did you know? She whispered. How did you figure it out? I figured it out because I spent 30 years fighting people exactly like you, I said. Professional scammers who prey on homeowners. People who use legal-sounding language to intimidate and steal from honest families. 2 police cars pulled into my driveway. 4 uniformed officers got out quickly. Behind them was an unmarked sedan with 2 people in business suits. Mr. Rodriguez? One of the suited people walked over with a badge. Agent Martinez, FBI White-Collar Crime Division. We spoke on the phone last week about this case. These are your subjects, I said, pointing to Karen and her accomplices. They just attempted to extort $8,400 from me using the exact same fake HOA scheme we discussed. Agent Martinez nodded to the uniformed officers. Karen Whitfield, you're under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud, extortion, and conspiracy to commit organized fraud. No. This isn't possible. Karen screamed as the handcuffs went on her wrists. He's just a homeowner. This isn't fair. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Johnson and Peterson looked at each other and made a run for it. They sprinted down the street as fast as they could in their cheap suits. They made it exactly half a block before 2 officers tackled them both on the Garcia's front lawn. As Karen was being loaded into the back of a police car, she kept screaming at me through the window. You tricked me. You should have told me you were a lawyer. That's not fair. Why would I tell you that? I called back. So you could run your scam somewhere else and hurt more innocent people? Agent Martinez handed me a thick folder. Mr. Rodriguez, these are the financial records we recovered from searches of her house and storage unit. Preliminary analysis shows she stole over $200,000 from 43 different families across 3 counties. All using this fake HOA method? Exactly the same pattern every single time. She targets quiet neighborhoods that don't have real HOAs. She creates fake incorporation papers with forged signatures. Then she shows up demanding money for made-up violations. How long has this been going on? At least 5 years that we can prove. You weren't her first target, but thanks to your investigation, you're definitely her last. I watched the police cars drive away with my 3 visitors. Karen was still visible through the rear window of one car, her face twisted with rage and disbelief. Mrs. Henderson came shuffling over from across the street, walking carefully with her cane. Michael dear, what was all that commotion? So many police cars. Justice, Mrs. Henderson, I said with satisfaction. Remember that woman who demanded $5,000 from you last month? She's been arrested for fraud. Really? Oh my goodness. Does that mean I might get my money back? Every single penny plus interest and damages. The FBI is freezing all her assets right now. Oh thank goodness, she said, tears in her eyes. I was so worried about being able to afford my heart medication next month. More neighbors started coming outside to see what all the excitement was about. The Garcias came over from next door. The new family who had moved in after the mysterious Johnson departure came down from the end of the street. Word traveled fast in a small neighborhood. By evening, my phone was ringing constantly. The local TV news wanted interviews. The district attorney's office needed detailed statements. 3 different law firms wanted to hire me to represent the victims in civil lawsuits against Karen and her operation. I thought you were completely retired from legal work, Agent Martinez said when he called with updates that night. I am retired, I said. But sometimes retirement finds its way back to you whether you want it or not. Would you consider consulting on this case? We're discovering similar schemes in at least 6 other states. We could really use someone with your expertise. Let me think about it and get back to you. 3 weeks later, the full scope of Karen's operation became clear. She was indicted on 47 federal charges including mail fraud, wire fraud, extortion, racketeering, and identity theft. Johnson and Peterson each got plea deals for 5 years in prison in exchange for testifying against her. The court ordered full restitution to all victims. Mrs. Henderson got her $5,000 back with 6% annual interest. The Garcias were compensated for all the stress and moving expenses they had incurred when they briefly considered leaving the neighborhood. 15 other neighbors received settlement checks for amounts ranging from $500 to $12,000. The fake Meadowbrook Heights HOA was officially dissolved by court order. All the real estate records were corrected to remove any reference to it. Every forged document was expunged from the official county files. I did end up consulting on the federal investigation. It turned out that Karen's scheme was part of a much larger network of fake HOA operations throughout the Southeast. My testimony and expertise helped convict 12 other scammers in what became known as the Phantom HOA conspiracy. But the best part of the whole experience came 6 months later. The neighborhood decided to have a block party to celebrate the end of Karen's reign of terror. It was a beautiful Saturday in spring. Mrs. Henderson made her famous chocolate chip cookies. The Garcias brought their incredible homemade tamales. The new family brought a huge pot of chili. Everyone was laughing and talking and actually enjoying each other's company for the first time in years. You know what's really funny about this whole situation? Mr. Garcia said to me as we sat in lawn chairs watching the kids play in the street. What's that? Karen kept saying she wanted to build community spirit, create neighborhood standards and bring everyone together. What's funny about that? She actually did build community, he said with a big grin. Just not the way she intended it. Her scam brought all of us together to stop her. Now we actually talk to each other. We watch out for each other. We share information about potential scams. We help each other with yard work and snow removal. He was absolutely right. The neighborhood was closer and more friendly now than it had ever been in the 15 years I'd lived here. People knew each other's names and life stories. Kids played together safely. We had impromptu barbecues and helped elderly neighbors with groceries and maintenance. You should be our HOA president, Mrs. Henderson said, patting my arm affectionately. There is no HOA, Mrs. Henderson. That's the whole point. Of course not, dear. That's exactly what makes you perfect for the job. Everyone within earshot started laughing, including me. I had retired from legal work to escape the constant stress and conflict. I wanted peace and quiet and a simple life. But sometimes the work finds you anyway whether you want it or not. And sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen. Karen Whitfield got 12 years in federal prison and will have to pay restitution for the rest of her life. Her victims got their money back and their peace of mind restored. And I got something I hadn't expected in retirement. A real community that was actually worth protecting. 3 minutes. That's all Karen Whitfield gave me to comply with her fraudulent demands on that Tuesday morning. It took 3 years of legal proceedings to put her away for good. But it only took 3 seconds for me to decide that I wasn't going to let her win. Sometimes the best defense really is a good offense. Sometimes justice comes in the most unexpected forms. And sometimes a retired lawyer who just wants to tend his garden in peace will absolutely destroy your criminal enterprise if you mess with his neighbors. The fake Meadowbrook Heights HOA is gone forever. But the real community that formed to fight it is stronger than ever. We look out for each other now. We share meals and stories and laughter. And we all keep an eye out for people like Karen Whitfield. Because real community isn't about rules and fees and violations. It's about neighbors helping neighbors. It's about standing up for what's right. It's about protecting the people you care about. Karen thought she could intimidate us with fake legal papers and phony deadlines. She thought we were just helpless homeowners who would pay whatever she demanded. She was wrong about that. Very, very wrong.